Welcome back to the Nearly Enlightened podcast. I am your host, Giana Giruso, and today I am joined by my friend Katie Tougas. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner and the owner of SOS Health and Wellness. Welcome, Katie.
Oh, thank you. Hello.
I'm so happy to have you. This is something that I want to talk about because I think it's so important now that these conversations are starting to come up around nutrition and how important it is for body, mind, and spirit health. And I know that you kind of subscribe to the same kind of view. So I'm so happy to have you. Do you want to introduce yourself a little and give us a little background about yourself?
Hi, I'm Katie. I am a nutritional therapy practitioner. I just finished up this past summer. My other job, I am a school teacher by day, so it's kind of a side hobby turned into a newfound career, and I've started my business. Along with you, after chatting with you, I have been chasing symptoms for years. So it is something that kind of spoke to me, and I kept looking at the nutritional therapy program and kept looking at something that I could look into holistic health. And it's something I just decided to dive into and bit the bullet and started out with the program. And here I am with my business. And I like to be punny, and it's the best pun I could come up with. So I did SOS Health and Wellness because I love ice cream. I'm a nutritionist or nutritional therapy practitioner who loves ice cream. So I fit the sprinkles in there somehow. And here I am, and I'm happy to share any information I have with you.
I love ice cream as well. I do like a little nightly dessert every single
Mhm.
night. And I think
I'm
that's
right there with
important.
you.
I think that's so important to have balance because I've been on every spectrum of the diet scene. When I was very young, I did pageants, which is like so crazy to think about. And the diet was super restrictive. It was only like 6 to 8 ounces of protein, like a half of
Wow.
a handful of vegetables, no carbs, no, like pretty much anything, like no spices, no salts, like anything that increased the caloric intake. It was like very calorie deficient. And I lost a ton of weight. I was down to about 6% body fat.
Yeah.
And I realize now like how unhealthy that was and like how unsustainable it was. And not only was it unsustainable, but it kind of sent my metabolism into a tailspin after coming out of that.
Mhm.
And my whole 20s was about finding health and wellness and healing my gut because after that, I like completely obliterated my digestive system. And it took a really long time to first of all, deal with the fact that my body didn't look like that anymore. And I probably was never going to be back to that size again. And just dealing with the repercussions that came after that. And then I was 6 years plant based most recently. And I just came up on my 1 year meat anniversary
That's
last
awesome. Congratulations.
and that made a world of a difference too
Mhm.
with my health. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm curious about the symptoms that you found yourself in and how you helped to get yourself out of that through nutrition.
So, long story short, I grew up, I was a national level swimmer. I did make nationals, but I wasn't like super fantastic. But I did go to nationals. So as a national level swimmer, I swam throughout college, and my college program is a 5-year master's program. So I stayed at my college. I was like zero point 0.2 off of Olympic trials. So I stayed on trying to swim to make Olympic trials while student teaching, while getting my 5th year in master's, and being a swim coach on the side. I'm tired just thinking about it now. I don't know how I did it. Um, so I think my issue started then. I was running myself very short. All my meals were on the go. Everything was go, go, go. And like you, I was trying to find what was healthy. And I find it interesting looking back on it, looking at thoughts that were coming from other people around me of like influences, I should say, of other people coming around me of like, oh, this is healthy. Why are you eating that? Because like, again, I said, I love ice cream. Like I was healthy. I was eating ice cream. It was fine. I was less than a half a second away from Olympic trials. Like I was fine. So I was swimming my 5th year, and then I got hired as a teacher right after that, right after my 5 years, and I went right into the classroom. And I think I just found myself super stressed out, super overwhelmed, trying to do everything my first year. And after a couple of years, I think I just ran my body to the ground. I ended up pretty sick. My hemoglobin was very, very low. I ended up with a blood transfusion. And then after that, I was kind of chasing symptoms. So leading up to that, I was just told I was fine. There was never anything wrong with me until that happened. And clearly there had to be something wrong with me before that. I think I was just underfueling, not purposely. I was just continually on the go and I was eating when I was hungry. And something that a lot of us don't learn when you're super stressed out, a lot of your hunger cues go awry and you're not really aware of that. So, I mean, I was eating when I was hungry, but clearly that wasn't enough. So after that, it took me a long time to build my body and my metabolism and everything back. And to be honest with you, I'm still working on it. And it's about, well, I've been teaching for 11 years now. So it's about like 8 years later. And I don't want that to like freak anybody out, but it was also slow for me. Once I hit working with the right practitioner who was dealing with the foods I was eating and dealing with using food as a way of healing my body, it went a lot faster than it should have gone. So that's also what kind of brought me into this was, okay, there is a way that I think if I had been working with that practitioner before, that a lot of this could have been addressed before that happened. So some of the symptoms I was chasing, I was constantly cold. Could not gain weight, no matter what I ate. Like I was eating ice cream every day. I could not gain weight. My hair got super, super thin. And I know that is also partly due to stress, but it was like very thin. My brain fog was a lot and I was just constantly worried and constantly anxious. And I know that again is partly due to stress too, but I was constantly told I was okay. My blood work was fine after my issue. My blood work was fine. Everything was fine. I was finally at the correct place in the BMI, if that's what it's called, right? The BMI. That's really bad. That's how much I pay attention to that. I was at the right place in that I was where I was supposed to be. I was fine. But I wasn't fine. I wasn't sleeping well. I was still really cold. My hands and my feet would get really cold. I was anxious all the time and I was somewhat anxious, but I was never like that much of an anxious person. So there was something still out of place that needed to be addressed. And once I started working with the practitioner I'm currently working with, that helped. And so we started addressing smaller things first. And now I'm currently feeling and sealing my gut for good.
Yeah. I think there's so much, you said so much and there's so much to talk about there. Like the first being eating on the go is like something that we're primed to do in this society, but it's one of the worst things that you could do for your digestion. And
you're not digesting any of the food you're eating.
Yeah.
You're not getting any of the nutrients. And that was like, not to go back to me, but I think that was my biggest problem. Like I was eating healthy, but my digestion, I was eating on the go. I was eating in between classes. I was eating in class. Like I wasn't digesting the nutrients I was eating.
Yes, I think it's so important to bring mindfulness into eating. And something that I have looked up on through my kind of figuring out what nutritionally works for me is I got really interested in Ayurveda. And one of the Ayurvedic teachers that I met says that when you eat standing up, the devil looks over your shoulder. And that was something that like always stuck with me because in Ayurveda, it's a really heavy emphasis on sitting and eating, being unplugged from any technology and just really sitting and focusing on chewing your food, tasting all of the flavors, and being present in that moment. And that was really game changing for me because even growing up in an Italian family where like the importance is centered around dinner time, around the meal, like the TV was always on in the background. Like we weren't necessarily paying attention to it, but it was like there. Yeah, it was just on in the background. So getting used to that was something that it took a while to like kind of get used to just sitting and eating.
And I feel like in this generation, society, whatever we're in, sitting anywhere without noise is hard.
Yes,
Like,
totally.
just if I'm home and my husband's working, like sometimes I put the TV on just for noise. Like, I'm not paying attention to it at all. I have no idea what's going on, but I put it on for noise, and I've been trying not to more, but it's hard, especially when you're eating and you're like, oh, I'm just eating. Like, how is that affecting me? But digestion doesn't start once you're in your stomach. It's a north to south process, and it starts in your brain and then goes down. Then you smell your food. And if there's something here that's not working as it should, then your digestion is already going to be off balance. Like, if you're not paying attention, or I'll use myself for an example. If I'm grading papers while I'm eating, like, I know I'm highly distracted. I'm just eating the food because I know that I need to be eating lunch right now. But really, as silly as it sounds, I'm not getting the best benefit from that food I'm eating because I'm focusing more on grading those papers than I am on eating the food.
No, that doesn't sound silly at all. And I'm sure that is something that plagues a lot of teachers. And I'm sure so many other professions can agree. But, teachers are, you
I just
guys,
use
you
that
don't get a break, really.
because I can relate to it.
Yeah.
It's like anything. Like, if you're at home, we have a puppy now, and it's like, where does time go? And it's like, dinner time is catch up time with my husband, and I've noticed myself like taking my phone out, showing him something, or we're like writing things down. But then I notice, I'm like, oh, I'm not actually enjoying the food and paying attention to what I'm eating. And I catch myself because you mentioned chewing your food. We don't chew food anymore. Like, we don't. Unless you're told to pay attention to chewing your food. And it's something, again, that I'm still working on, but like, we take a couple bites and we chew it. You should be chewing like each bite 30 times. Like, you should be chewing it until you can like swallow it without pieces in it to get the benefits of the food you're eating. And it's hard. We don't do that in a society where we're like constantly on the go.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I really wanted to address too is the anxiety and stress piece. And if you're not properly, if you don't have the proper nutrition and you're not properly hydrated, then that's actually going to increase the chances of you being more anxious and more stressed out. And I think that's so interesting to think about.
Yeah, I can say I experienced that firsthand this summer. We went to Maine on a hiking weekend, and I only brought one water bottle on our hike. I had like electrolyte packets, everything, but I didn't want to run out of water. It was the weekend, it was like 95 degrees here in New England. And I did not drink enough water, and I got really dehydrated. And that night I actually ended up with like super anxiety and like almost had a panic attack. And I was on vacation. There's absolutely no reason. There was nothing. I was staying in like a tent resort. Like, it was amazing. No reason that I needed to have anything. There was nothing I was worrying about. It was because I was dehydrated. And I can honestly say that I know that because there was nothing else I was worrying about. And again, the biggest thing in this health is that everyone is bio individual. So like, some people have a bigger stress bucket, I'll refer to it as, or like a bigger bucket or bandwidth to hold that. But if you're like, I'm still healing, so my bandwidth is not as large. So like, maybe if you had the same amount of water, would have been fine. But like with me, my bandwidth is still growing. So my body was like, you're dehydrated. I'm putting you in like super hypersensitivity mode. And I don't think a lot of people realize how much hydration is, how important hydration is for your digestion, for your basic bodily functions. Like, if you're not hydrated, I'm sorry, chances are you're not going to the bathroom and you're not detoxing your body. Like, you can do as many juice cleanses. I don't support that, but you can do as many as you want. But if you are not detoxing by going to the bathroom, you're not detoxing your body. You have a liver for a reason. Your liver is to help you detox. Like, if you're not properly hydrated, that's not going to flow as it needs to. So I totally agree with the hydration piece and different things playing into that.
And I know you talk about it on your social media a little bit, but something that I've recently just learned is because I'm a big water drinker. So I drink a ton of water. And the summer was also a turning point for me we spend the summer in Colorado, and it was a very hot, I mean, I live in Arizona, so it's like hot all the time, but this particular heat in Colorado was very different because not only was it like hot, it was also humid. So not something that I'm used to anymore living in Arizona. So I noticed that the more water I drank, I was actually feeling shittier. And what I came to learn is that electrolytes are so important. And while I'm not a fan of artificial electrolytes, like all you need to do is add a little salt to your water.
And like, I'm one of those people, and I'm going to admit, like, I don't believe things until I actually do them myself. And I feel like you might be the same.
Yep, same.
So like my husband
Definitely
always
right.
told me, like, well, put a little salt in your water, it will be fine. And then my natural doctor, so my practitioner is a natural doctor, put a little salt in your water. And like, until I took this class firsthand, like, sorry to my doctor if she ever listens to this, but until I took this class firsthand and learned, like, electrolytes are so important for all the functions of your body, for your mineral balance, for everything to be balanced. Water is great, but it's just water. It's going to go through you. And again, for some people, it actually makes you feel worse the more water you drink, because it's just making you thirsty. Your body wants those electrolytes. So put a pinch of salt in it. And we use real salt. I just wouldn't say don't just use regular table salt, because regular table salt's not really salt.
Yeah. I know. We only use sea salt at this point, and even it's funny, like the more things you learn, the more things come to your plate. And
Yep.
the
Like a
other
rabbit
thing,
hole.
yep, exactly. And the other thing that I learned this summer, I was using Himalayan salt a lot, and that is actually like basically dirty salt. And that freaking blew my mind. It's
Yeah, me
pink
too.
because it's literally rusted iron. And now we label it as a health food. And I've come to learn that basically anything that's labeled as a health food is probably not.
Right. It's, yeah, basically like, just eat whole foods in their most basic form as possible. I mean, we have so many things available to us that it would be stupid not to like spice it up, no pun intended, but like try to have it in its basic form. Like, you don't need to go buy something that's been super processed in all of these oils and these canola oils and all of these things that have like require huge machinery to process. Like, go out, get some type of meat, cook it in spices and olive oil, and make some type of dinner with it, with vegetables, or lunch with it. It doesn't need to be complicated. I think people think that eating healthy needs to be complicated and needs to be fancy. It doesn't really. Like, there's all
No.
these brands, all these companies that make it seem like it needs to be super fancy, super great. It doesn't. Like, you need to go to the grocery store or wherever you go. We go to the grocery store and we do support a local farm with our meat, and that's a whole nother topic, but
It really is.
so like, stay on the outside aisles. And I'm like you heard me say, I eat ice cream. Like, I eat some processed foods, but like, my belief is if you have your basic foundations down and you eat pretty solid for like the majority of your food consumption, your body is going to have a big enough bandwidth to be able to take on that processed food. Like, we live in a society where our food is mainly processed. So like, I get that, especially dependent on where you live, it's a lot harder. We had a lot of girls in my program that live in Alaska, and they don't have all the grocery stores that we have available in other places. So like, an example I believe was grass-fed beef for them was a lot harder to find. Like, they're not going to get sick from going to the store and buying regular beef. But if you have the opportunity, yes, buy the grass-fed beef. It's going to be higher in nutrients. So it doesn't need to be fancy, like crock pots. I laughed when I bought a crock pot, but like, use a crock pot, throw all your stuff in. It doesn't have to be a fancy meal. It just needs to be nutrient dense to support your body.
And I think that's so important too. Like crock pots are godsend, especially for people who work. I'm like
Yes.
super, super lucky. My boyfriend is a chef. So us coming together was like the perfect balance because he was using canola oils and all of these like shitty oils. And I was vegetarian, and like we would both pretty much make our own separate meals. And then last year, after 2 years of us dating, I had been craving meat for a really long time.
Mhm.
And some symptoms I was experiencing towards the end of vegetarianism were also hair loss. And I had like super bad dark circles. I mean, I still kind of do. It's like more genetic than anything, I think, at this point. But if you look at pictures of me now and pictures of me from last year, it looks like a completely different person. My skin cleared up once I started eating meat. It was just like crazy. I was getting better sleep and I felt
That's
full.
the best benefit.
The best benefit. And it's something even better than that was that I was feeling full, and on a plant-based diet, I wasn't ever feeling full, and I was snacking all the time. And now I mean, I still snack here and there, but it's way less than what it was. Like I was pretty much constantly always eating, and I was eating dry foods like dried fruits, nuts, and like those are also pretty hard on your digestive system when it's a bulk of your diet. Like we don't talk about that either.
No.
And I got a lot of shit from people in the plant-based community for going back and eating meat. They're like, "Oh, well, you hate the animals and like you monster and this and that and the other thing." And one of the most interesting things that people told me was, "Oh, when you want to go back to vegetarianism or veganism, I can help you. I can help you find the supplements that you need so that you don't feel that way." And my biggest thing is we shouldn't have to supplement. Like supplements are the biggest scam of our generation. And if you're eating whole foods, you don't need supplements. Now I'm still doing supplements. Not sponsored by them, but I'm doing heart and soil supplements. I'm taking their beef, liver, and organ supplement, and also their liver and bone marrow. And I've noticed even adding those into my already, like I'm pretty much like 90% carnivore at this point, which I hate putting a label on it, but we've been reading all of Paul Saladino's books. And it just makes sense. And like the more we implement these things, the healthier we both feel. And another thing that you had mentioned previously was that every body is different. So diet culture is such a sham. It's like we need to find what fuels our body best, where we feel optimal, and kind of go from there. So like having guidelines of just like whole foods, as local as you can get it. Like we're pretty lucky living in Colorado and Arizona. Like a bulk of cattle farms are here. So when we go to the market, it's a lot different. And I mentioned this to you before when we were chatting. When I went home to Rhode Island, I was actually pretty like, the market made me like super depressed. And I said to my mom, like, we bought organic pasture raised ground beef, and it was $11.99 a pound, and I almost had a stroke because I was like, in the West, like this is like half of the price. And it was just there. There's so much more available here. Like we have local milk, and even living
we're not allowed that. I want to try it, but I can't find it here.
Yeah, local milk in the Northeast is so interesting because I mean a bulk
raw milk. Are you talking about raw milk?
Yeah, so
yeah.
Ours, so the local milk that we have, we do have a company that we can get raw.
Okay.
But it's kind of a little bit more like you have to seek it out a little bit more. But actually our local Whole Foods has a brand that is not pasteurized, and it's only lightly homogenized. So it's the closest to raw that you can get.
Yeah, we don't have that at ours.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy because a lot of the dairy farms are in Connecticut. So like
so I get a milk delivery service. So we do have local, but I get whole milk. That's the closest I can get to anything raw.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but it's like in everybody buys skim milk, and I lived off of skim milk. Like I know.
No, I
I
did
lived off
too.
of skim milk, and I grew up on skim milk, and I liked it, I thought, I guess. And I would order chocolate milk. I love chocolate milk. And be like, ew, gross, that's whole milk. I don't like whole milk. It bothers my stomach. But now it's all I eat whole milk yogurt and whole milk. I drink whole milk. So it's interesting.
For the longest time, I thought I was lactose intolerant. And really, I think what I had was leaky gut syndrome.
Yeah, and I think that's partly what I think that was part of my issue too, because it's funny when I started eating the whole milk, the skim milk yogurt or like the 0% yogurt actually started bothering my stomach. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's probably because everything that's missing from it. But it's interesting that to go back, if you don't mind, to go back to you talking about the vegetarian, and like I will work with anybody, like you find what works for your body. But I had a similar experience. I would go on a lot of yoga retreats, and usually all the yoga retreats are vegan, vegetarian, whatnot. And I never, like, my body loves me. I know that that's something like I would not give up. And yes, I love animals, but I'm sorry, my body likes meat.
Well, I
So
think
I did
that
it.
just quick, but
Yeah,
I think that it's important to note that you can love animals and you can support responsibly farmed
right,
animals where they have the best life possible. Like
right.
when we go hiking here and in Colorado, like we are literally hiking by a lot of the
That's so
cattle
cool.
and
Yeah.
there's no fences. They
Mhm.
all have their little ear tags and
Mhm.
somehow everyone knows where the cows
Fine.
belong.
Mhm.
But they're even on like national I'm losing my train of thought, but they're in like national park.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like
So it's
when we
like,
went to Portugal, they were like, you need to get steak. It's the happiest cow you'll ever eat. And they were all just on the hills in Portugal. And the food we ate in Portugal was amazing. So I believe it. But when I was on my yoga retreat, after one of them, I came home and we went out to a local place in East Greenwich, and I ordered, like, I'm weird. I typically only make my burgers at home. I don't know why. I just like grossed out ordering them at a restaurant, but I ordered like ground beef tacos or steak tacos. I'm not like, I eat steak, but it's not one of my favorites. I love beef and whatnot. And I ordered, it was steak tacos, and my grandma was actually there, and she looked at my mom and she was like, she just ordered steak tacos. I ate every piece of that dinner. And it was because I had been eating vegetarian for a week. My body was just like, you need that fuel. So it's interesting, like vegetarian could work for somebody and they could be getting what they need off of it. But like if you know your body needs it, like that's awesome that you figured that out and you started eating meat and you feel better and you found what works for you with that. So I think that's like awesome that you did that. And I think more people need to tune into their bodies and figure out what works for them versus like, oh, I'm going on this diet. Oh, I'm going to try this one because that one didn't work. Like if the first one didn't work, the second one's probably not going to work either.
yeah,
Like
diet
just
culture
support yourself.
is
Yeah.
just like, it makes me crazy. It makes me so crazy. It's like it doesn't work because you're not addressing your lifestyle.
Right. And people like have heard of my business and my new thing, and they don't want to tell me what they ate or like eat something in front of me or like, oh, she doesn't eat dessert. It's like I have a baking blog too. Like I like to bake. Yes, I try and find better versions of some stuff, but like I make some stuff as it is, as my grandmother would make it. Like it's not the best for you, but I have that foundation built and my body can now handle it. And it's like to go along with the stress piece, if you're thinking that much about what you're putting in your body, like that's going to cause a whole nother level of stress that will then affect your digestion and then affect, again, assimilating those nutrients from what you're eating. So there's like the whole big bubble to it that it's like, yes, it is the food you eat, but it's not just that. Like you need to look at your environment around it too. And that kind of goes around with that. Like if these people are so focused on, well, I'm eating this for this reason, that's great. But is your body also accepting that reason? And are you feeling good with that? Because I think a lot of people skip that reason and kind of push it aside and like, oh no, but I'm eating it because it's what I need to do. But do you feel good on that? And a lot of times it's no. So like,
Yeah, I
for
can
you.
totally relate
Yeah.
to that. I mean, but when I first went plant-based, it made the most sense to me and I felt great for probably the first 4.5 years. And then there was a turning point, and it was very interesting. And I think when you do cultivate that relationship with your body and you are able to, you have that intuitive kind of knowledge, things become a little bit different. So before, it was probably like a few days before my cycle would start, I was craving beef, which was wild to me. First of all, as a vegetarian, as someone who was plant-based, and also because I was never a red meat eater. So even as a child, like the only red meat I ever got was like in meatballs. And my parents would have to like, if, I mean, we didn't eat a lot of red meat, but yeah, like my mom would have to like bribe me and be like, it's one meal, like, you know, and even at that, like I was never a red meat person. If we were having steak for dinner, I was like the most upset. And I would kind of eat the vegetables and grains and like whatever else. And like I would only have like maybe like a bite or two of the beef.
Yeah.
And so for this to start happening at year like 4.5, 5 years of being plant-based, it started to scare me. And I was like, okay, well, if I just increase my greens that week, then I'll feel better, because in my brain, it was like, oh, you must need iron.
Iron. Yeah.
Well, long story short, I don't think it was iron at all, but
you need a lot more than that, but
yes. And what I actually think it was copper. And that's also not something that we think about. But that is a really important mineral for us to have in our bodies. And it actually helps you, it helps to turn the iron into oxygen and for it to be bioavailable for our bodies. So if you're plant-based and you don't really have a source of copper, then the iron that you are eating is literally just accumulating in your blood, which
you actually end up having extra iron, but then people think it's an iron deficiency.
Yeah. And I mean,
not being utilized correct.
If someone would have looked at me on the surface level, dark circles under the eyes, bruising easily, craving beef, like somebody would have said, oh, that's an iron deficiency.
Yeah. And I think that was, looking back on it now with who I'm working with, and we kind of think that mine was iron also, but I think that there was a huge play with copper in there as well. And I think that's a lot of what's overlooked, and it's hard to get all of that with the plant-based foods. Like I'm all for plants, and plant-based and vegetables are super important. And again, in today's society, we're not getting a lot of vegetables with all of us eating on the go. But I think there is a time and place for meat, and I think that people need to eat it.
Yeah, I think having a balanced diet is probably the most beneficial for everyone, and finding out what that balance is for you.
And that's what I am helping people do, like finding the balance of having like a balanced breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then your blood sugar will be stable.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Ice cream. Then you can enjoy that ice cream and not be on a roller coaster from it later.
That's two things that I would love to talk about next. So first of all, breakfast, because I am a breakfast skipper even still. It's just such a hard time of day for me. Like I'm also like, I'm just not hungry in the morning. Like some mornings I do wake up hungry, and then I'll honor that. But the mornings that I don't wake up hungry, it is like a chore for me to eat before lunchtime. And so I want to talk about that and why breakfast is important part of the day, and because of that blood sugar regulation. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
So I think I have a hard time like understanding the no breakfast people. I will say I lived with somebody at one point that they were not a breakfast person. They would not eat till 11. I'm like, how do you do that? Like how? So I've seen it a lot. But I love breakfast. I don't know. I get very cranky if not. And so that's probably blood sugar too. But at least, hey, I'm honoring that and I know it. So breakfast, it's super important for many reasons, especially for your blood sugar, because if you're getting up, think about it, you're sleeping however long you're sleeping, hopefully like whatever, 7 to 8 hours a night. That's like the ideal world.
God bless.
I do that, but for those people who do, like you're going all that time without food and without fuel, and your body's recovering, your body's repairing. That's the time for it. Like when you wake up in the morning, it's not the time to have a cup of caffeine, because that's going to the acidity of that caffeine is just going to shock your system and bring your blood sugar way up here when you have just slept all those hours, repaired and recovered your body. You need to feed it something that's going to keep that blood sugar stable, and then you can have that cup of coffee.
I'm a weirdo. So this is going to shock everyone, but I actually gave up coffee like post college, and I don't drink coffee anymore
You're
at
not weird.
all.
I did not drink coffee until I became a teacher, and I only drank it because I was like, will this help me?
Yeah.
And because I like the smell and the taste of it. It's not like I felt the need to have it to keep me going. I just liked it. I actually stopped once COVID started, I think. And then I went on a kick for like a couple months this summer, but then I stopped because I realized I was actually not sleeping that well drinking the caffeine.
Yeah.
So the importance of breakfast. So your blood sugar starts out, if you're like if your body is balanced in homeostasis, your blood sugar, you're waking up, you need to refuel yourself so that blood sugar stays stable, because if not, it's just going to start on a roller coaster. If you wake up and you start either whatever your morning routine is, if you just go right to work, like you're already burning through your calories, your stress is probably starting to rise, no matter even if you're just getting up and meditating, like you're still getting up and doing something. You need to be able to fuel that body so your blood sugar starts at a stable level. So I like to say like within 30 minutes is ideal, but within like an hour of waking up, because I do understand like some people don't like to wake up and eat right away. Like it's not like, for some people it's actually like appalling to do that, or like it doesn't like it. I mean, again, I don't understand that because I'm not that person. um but like it actually helps keep that blood sugar stable, because if you start off your morning, like think about if you start off your morning, you get out of bed and you step on something sharp, like that's you skipping breakfast, like you're screaming, your body, your cortisol is going up. Like if you start doing everything and then you don't eat something until like 4 or 5 hours after you've eaten, picture your body still like on that high from stepping on whatever you stepped on. Your blood sugar is way up here and you're not fueled. So then for the rest of the day, you're going to be on a blood sugar roller coaster. No matter like how great your lunch and dinner are, you're going to be catching up on that blood sugar. And blood sugar is important for a lot of things. Like if your blood sugar is starting to go up and down, like that can make you start to feel butterflies in your stomach. You can start to feel shaky. You can start to feel like worried about things. A lot of times, like when our blood sugar is unstable, you start to become like hypersensitive of things around you too. It's like you realize you get hangry. Hangry is a result of blood sugar. So like for me personally, and again, like that hypersensitivity might not be for everybody. It shows up in everybody differently, but like you start to either get hangry, if you get a headache when you haven't eaten, if you start to get shaky, that's because your blood sugar is starting to become unbalanced. Like I feel like some people think like the less you eat throughout the day is better, but no, like you need to keep that blood sugar balance for your body systems to be balanced. It's like some release of cortisol is great, but if your cortisol is continually releasing throughout the day, that's like continually chasing a bear throughout the day. Like you want to keep it stable, because like if you have an instance where you have something stressful, like that's also going to have a release of the blood sugar. So there's multiple things of the cortisol, sorry. There's multiple things that like if you can help keep that blood sugar balanced, then that's going to help balance your body for like those other events that might show up.
This
If
is
that makes
so
sense.
interesting. Yeah, this is so interesting for me because I don't know a lot of the science behind the blood sugar stuff, but I know that I am frequently affected by it, and it's probably because I skip breakfast. What
Well, it's
I've
hard. Like I find myself, like I was working with a client last night, and when I have a client come in, and I did it myself, you do a questionnaire and you do a food and mood journal, and it brings up the symptom burden graph. And I've been working with this client for a little while, and one of them that showed up was sugar handling. Um, and I showed the difference in summer happens to all of us. Like it happens to me too. Like my transition back to work has caused my blood sugar to go up and down. So, we noticed by just making a little switch of like including that breakfast, like we looked at the data and the breakfast might have been the part that was changed. That's the only thing that changed. So like including that breakfast and like a full lunch, like it really helps to balance that hormone release and to keep your body at a comfortable place.
Wow, this is like mind blowing. So sometimes when I do skip breakfast, I will replace with bone broth. Do you think that you need like an actual hearty meal, or is something like that beneficial?
I would say a hearty meal, something a little more balanced, because bone broth is great, and I'm jealous of you making bone broth. I
It's
keep saying
so
I'm going to.
easy.
I know, I keep saying I'm going to, and then I just don't.
It's so easy and so great because like a lot of times people will look at you like, because I use chicken feet.
Yeah.
So when you're buying organic pasture raised chicken feet, people are like, what the
What are you
hell are you
buying?
doing? So it brings up a lot of conversations at the grocery store, which is funny.
No, I would say try and get a balanced meal of protein, fat, carbs. So we say like 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat, just to keep that level. And again, it's depending on what you're doing in the morning. Like if you're going to go work out, or like if you're eating after you work out, like if you just have a little snack before, like a banana and a handful of nuts or something to hold you over, depending what you're doing, and then eat after that, that's fine. But I'd say like having like a full breakfast of, I don't know, like, are you a savory person or are you a sweet person?
I'm a savory. Well, I'm
Okay,
both.
so
As
you
my
could
friends
have,
laugh at me because we have like this little inside joke where it's like we say we love the sweets, and our little inside joke to each other is we look at each other and we're like, "Oh, just the sweets?"
yeah. I'm the same way, because I'm a super sweet person, sweet tooth, but I also like savory food
I'm
too.
a food person,
Yeah,
period.
food. So you could do like a couple of eggs with, you have access to great meat. Like you could do like good quality bacon with that, and then like some toast and either avocado or ghee or something on there, and that could be, but again, I can kind of tell you're like, but that's a lot of breakfast.
That
So
is a
like
lot of
something,
breakfast.
it is, and like to start off with something simple, like if you like a smoothie, like I don't, they're, I like smoothies. I don't do them for their convenience and like because I think they're healthier. I probably, because it reminds me of ice cream, but like I like smoothies, but it's like building a smart smoothie. So if that's something for you, like if that's like, if you don't, the like act of actually like eating or whatnot, like if you could throw together a quick smoothie with some things in it that would be supportive, I think that would probably be a better option than bone broth. Like continue bone broth because it's great for your gut and great for healing, but like if you make a smoothie, like throw a half of an avocado in it, like some handfuls of fruit, some full fat yogurt if you're fine with that, and something that gives you like the flavoring. Like you could, I do, like if you have a clean protein powder, again, it's not like the best option, but it's not the worst option either. Like again, it's finding that balance and what works for you. So like you could be on the end of the spectrum where like, okay, that's processed and that's terrible. But if you think that, then it's going to be terrible for you. But if you eat it and like your other meals are fine, then yes, are there better options? But if that's what's working for you right now, then you can have that and your body will be fine with it. And then you're having like great meals for the rest of them. So like if that's what works for you right now in your time of getting the protein in the morning, then that's what works for you, because especially for ladies, it's important to get the protein in. A lot of women don't eat enough protein.
Yes, and I was one of those women, and I'm an active person. You know, I
Yeah,
practice
you are.
yoga
Yeah.
2 to 4 times a week. We
Mhm.
hike.
Yeah.
I'm a massage therapist. Like
Yeah.
like pretty much everything I do is energy exerting. So this is eye opening for me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to maybe start to build. Scott, my partner, is really
Yeah.
great at making the best smoothies, and he
Yeah.
usually like, he has it down to a science where he
Mhm.
adds like all of the things.
Like you
And
can get as creative as you want. Like I'm not a fan of chia seeds, but you can throw chia, like it just, me personally, not like their nutritional profile. Like I just don't like them. Like you can use chia seeds, you can use nuts and whatever. But again, as you said, they dependent on your digestive system, they can be a little tougher to digest. Like you can get creative with a savory smoothie. Like I don't have many options for that because I like my sweet smoothies, but you can do greens in it, and you can do like something that wouldn't make it so sweet that it is like, you could actually probably use your bone broth in it. I don't know
I've been toying with this idea, so
I'm
it's funny
thinking
you bring
like
it up.
you
So
kind of have me like curious as to if that would work. I mean, some people put water in their smoothies. I use milk in my smoothie, but some people use water. So I guess it would just be the equivalent to using water. Like if
yeah,
I wouldn't say put a lot in it, but if you're using it for the liquid, like why not? If you don't mind the taste of it.
you know what? If you make bone broth with just beef bones,
Yeah.
it actually has a very mild flavor. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if just like a plain beef bone broth with like usually I add like onions and celery and carrots and like whatever. Like I actually just use scraps, which is pretty crazy. So
Yeah.
in the freezer, I just keep like a
You save
bowl
on
with,
them.
and
Yeah.
I just save all of the ends, and that's usually what goes
That's
into the bone
awesome.
broth. It's like
I'm jealous.
whatever scraps are left over. I
Yeah.
actually got this idea from my friend Michaela. So I know you're listening, Mick. So this is your shout out. It's a great way. Like food is so
Yeah.
expensive now. And
Mhm.
especially, I mean, we're just two people. I
Yeah.
mean, our
It's
cats
nuts.
indulge in the bone broth too, but um, we're just two people. And like just saving those little bit of scraps, like that's a
Yeah.
huge savings. And like I
Yeah.
said, it's not expensive to make bone broth. You literally use the cheapest
Yeah.
cuts.
Yeah.
You could, even if you do, like if you have a rotisserie chicken, like I know some people use the bones from the rotisserie chicken, like bone broth is usually just like trash, like
I
trash.
know it's gonna be my winter project.
Yeah, Michaela
I'm gonna
calls it
start.
Michaela calls it compost soup. So she like,
That's awesome.
yeah, so like anything she would use, like she saves her vegetable scraps and like bone scraps and saves them in the freezer. And anytime that the bucket is full, it goes in and she makes a big pot of stock. And it's so
Yeah,
good to have on hand. Like
it is.
we add it to everything. Like even if we're, starting just like a whatever meal, like adding it to rice or
Mhm. It
um
gives so much more flavor to things that you cook. But I was thinking too when you said that. So I used to use a protein powder that was a bone broth protein powder. So I mean, the flavoring was different, but if you're crafty with different flavors like that and herbs and stuff. So if you take some, like if you like chocolate and you use the bone broth and you like put some cacao powder or something like that in there, like I'm sure that you could use that within whatever you create in the smoothie, because a lot of times for people that don't like breakfast, like transitioning into the smoothies is an easier way to get it in. So like throw a half of an avocado, like some, if you want the fruit. If not, you can throw something else in there, but you could do that and that could get you a little bit more in. And you just had me thinking of different like ways to make easy meals. Like we usually meal prep, and I know people don't like that. I just honestly, I do it because when I get home from work, the last thing I want to do every night is cook. Like I like cooking, I enjoy it, I love baking, but I don't want to do it every night. I just don't. But we ran out of food for tonight, which we typically do on the weekends. But like we've been buying, our milk delivery service has some other options too, and they have wild caught salmon. So we buy that. It comes frozen, and like this is as simple as our dinner is tonight. He's cooking wild caught salmon. We have some potatoes left over, and we had some frozen vegetables in the freezer. Like it doesn't need to be fancy. Like, is it the dinner I'm looking most forward to? No, but it's still going to taste great. Like the way you cook it is the way it works, but it's like 3 or 4 simple ingredients, and you don't need to buy, especially frozen. You don't need to buy fresh, especially like depending on the season or where you are. Like organic frozen vegetables could be better than whatever vegetable is being sold fresh in the store.
Oh yeah,
So
because in the
yeah,
wintertime in the Northeast, like
we
where
don't get
are,
any.
yeah, I mean, where is that stuff coming from? It's coming from Brazil.
Yeah.
It's coming from Central America. It's
By the
coming
time you
from
get
the
it,
West Coast.
yeah,
Exactly. And the thing that we don't talk about is they are picked when they are not ripe, so
mhm,
that they ripen over time as
yeah,
they're traveling to that
yeah.
place. Like you are losing so much
All of your,
nutrients.
yeah. So it's like, I feel, sorry, not, I feel like this is going back to before, but the smoothie talk got me on it. Like, it doesn't need to be like looking fancy or looking at some like package that has 5 different labels, like missing, like, oh, it fits in this category, this category, this category. Like, buying frozen vegetables is not bad. Like, buy frozen vegetables and eat them. Like, buy frozen fruit and eat them. So sorry, that got like really off tangent, but thinking about the smoothie and putting different things in the smoothie got me on like cooking
No,
mind.
I think that's such an important point. Is like nutrition doesn't have to be complicated.
Oh,
Creating meals doesn't have to be complicated as long as it is whole food based and
right,
you're getting that the nutrition that your body really needs
right.
to fuel itself. Like that is all that matters.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are missing that piece. Like, we buy a lot of prepared foods and we buy a lot of things in that are already done for us, and a lot of those things are missing those components that our bodies need.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, fine, snacking on them isn't going to hurt you, but like, you need to build that foundation of like a solid breakfast, a solid lunch, and a solid dinner if you want to feel the best in your body. I mean, there are ways that you can kind of like, I know people have thoughts on their fasting and all of that. But like, the ideal way is like having a breakfast, lunch, and dinner that's built solidly, like with your protein, your fat, and your carbs. Fat's not evil. Like, I eat
Carbs
enough
aren't evil
fat.
either. I'm
No,
so
no,
glad you said
carbs
the
aren't
C
either. Like,
word.
I like, my body loves carbs. I live off of carbs, but I also eat enough protein to sustain that, and enough fat. Like, ladies, especially for your hormone balance, like, you need to eat fat. And like, when I thought I was eating enough to support myself, I probably was not eating enough fat. And that was what a lot of us are missing. Like, you need fat for a lot of processes in your body, like living.
I
Mainly.
love this conversation because I think this time period right here and now, I feel like we are in a renaissance and
Mhm.
we are redefining what nutrition looks like, because I think our generation, especially, we were told that fat is bad.
Mhm.
And I can see it when I was vegetarian too. That's definitely, even though I would have pretty much an avocado a day,
Yeah.
um, I was still grossly missing that fat content.
Yeah.
And now my hair isn't falling out as much. I mean, I'm a girl and I have like extremely long
You have
hair,
long
so it
hair,
falls out.
so.
But when I tell you, it was coming out in chunks, like
Mhm.
it got to the point where this was probably right before I had beef again for the first time. Um, I had showered and then I was like brushing my hair, doing my thing, getting ready for bed. I came out here. Scott got in the shower. When he got back out, he was like, "Hey, I think something's wrong with you." And I was like,
Oh,
"What?" And he was like, "The amount of hair that has been coming out of your head
yeah.
is not normal." He was like, "It's not normal, like, oh, few strands here and there."
Yeah.
He was like, "There are chunks coming
Right.
out of your head." And that was
Eye-opening, yeah.
eye-opening. Yeah. And then again, like I said, like almost for 2 years, right before my cycle, like it was like clockwork. I was just getting these intense beef cravings.
Yeah.
And I had never experienced that before. And my mom is actually a huge proponent of, if your body is craving something, there's probably
A
something
reason.
that you need.
Mhm.
So then just giving in and having beef for the first time, everyone was like, "Are you sick? Did you get sick? How's your
Yeah.
stomach?" And I have to be 100% transparent. I was fine. Like
Yeah.
better than fine. I was great. And that first day we had, it's actually a pretty funny story. So we were at a Korean
Tacos?
barbecue.
Oh, no.
We were at a Korean barbecue restaurant and I thought that I was going to be fine eating just vegetables at the Korean barbecue. And Scott eats meat. So he was like, I'm getting beef and pork and good luck. And when he was, it just so happened to be right before my cycle. And when he was cooking the beef, I was already craving it. And I was like,
I need this.
yeah, I was like, I'm gonna eat a bite. And he was like, no, you're not. I was like, because I had been threatening it for a while, but every time push came to shove, I chickened out because I was like, oh, this little soul.
Yeah.
But you really do have to do what's best to fuel your body. And if that, like, I can get behind it if I know that that animal lived a great life. And 9 times out of 10 when we're eating any kind of meat at this point, it's pasture raised, so I know that it lived outside its entire life. And like I said, here it's really easy to get local. Like even what we buy at Whole Foods, a lot of it comes from small local farms, so I can really I can really get behind it. And we also have like an awesome meat market here. It's like a little pricier, but I love going there.
Probably not as much as we pay.
Yeah, it's expensive, but yeah, it's worth it. And when you're fueling your body properly and you start to feel like within a week of eating, actually, I would say within 4 days of eating meat, already I started to become better. Like my sleep was way deeper. And I was getting like actual REM cycles, which was something that I was definitely missing. My dark circles started to disappear. The hair loss kind of tapered off and stopped. And yeah, it was crazy. I just had way more energy. I was really, as a vegetarian, especially towards the end, I was very lethargic. I'm not a morning person to begin with, but I was very, yeah, I know it sucks. It's the worst. I was very lethargic in the morning, and it took me a really long time to get going. And even though, like I said, I quit coffee like quite a few years ago, I was still having cacao. And it's, although 8 ounces of cacao is like equivalent to the same amount of caffeine that's in a half a cup of decaf coffee. So even though, even though the caffeine content is super low, I noticed that it still was having an effect on my blood sugar. And I forgot where I was going with this, but
just you were lethargic in the morning.
Yes. So even just like the little bit of caffeine, like wasn't doing it for me. And starting to eat meat again, that was one thing that I noticed in the morning when I woke up. I like woke up without an alarm. I was alert. I was way more clear. The brain fog totally disappeared. And I just felt clearer and like ready to start the day. Like I was like excited to wake up and start the day.
I just think it's so cool that you noticed like that it helped you that much, because like for somebody else it might not have like an effect like that, but it's really cool that you're able to make that connection, and that's what it was.
And I think I was in such a deficient state that once I started to properly fuel my body, it was like even my digestion was better. Digestion is something I've struggled with for a really long time. When I was really little, I went through a period of time where I had chronic strep throat and no one knew what it was. I kept getting misdiagnosed. So basically for the first, I would say from 2 to almost 7, I was living with chronic strep and no one really knew what it was. And so then I was just like living off of rounds of antibiotics. And that is definitely something that, it's backed by science. It changes your gut flora forever. And part of what I experienced in my 20s was healing my gut. And I think it was in large part to just all of those years of antibiotics. And I was treated for pretty much everything down to parasites. And it was just little old strep throat.
So they treated you for parasites wow.
Oh yeah, it was. I should probably have my mom on and we should talk about that, because
I just did a GI map and I was so nervous that parasites would come up, but knock on wood, somehow.
Ooh, talk about that. This has been something that I'm kind of interested in doing.
Well, so I'm not trained in it. I think I would like to eventually take that route, come down the line a little bit. But but I just had a GI map done, and it's interesting what shows up on it. And I again don't know much about the actual like analyzing the tests and whatnot, but it comes up with different bacteria overgrowth, different parasites if you have it, different viral infections that could be still lingering in there. And it just gives you a clearer picture of things that could be happening in your gut. Again, I can't speak like super into it because I'm not trained in it. And I only just had my follow-up on it. But I'm excited to see where it brings me. But I was super nervous about the parasite part, and I don't know why, but I'm like, I have to have some type of parasite.
I think it's just because like now in the health and wellness arena, it's starting to become a buzz. Yeah, definitely. Like, I follow Dr. Jess Petros, and she is a root cause practitioner, and she really dives into what the root causes are, and basically like all of the root causes of everything, according to her, are parasites.
And I think somebody told me that a lot of them are hard to show up on this too, because it's like the sample you give. So just like any type of testing, it's like the sample you give that day. But again, I don't know enough about it like to speak to that. But
we'll have to manifest finding someone.
I have heard that too, with parasites being the nag of a lot of things.
So why should people choose to work with a nutritional therapy practitioner?
I think it just helps to overall balance your body. And a lot of the things I like to, my Instagram used to be called the basic batch, not from what you think it is. I like to make a basic batch of chocolate chip cookies, but it's just really like addressing those basic foundation skills that will allow you to have a sustainable health throughout your life, rather than something that's a quick fix. Like you heard me, like I'm how many years after, but again, that was moving very slowly too. But again, it's like something that you can do that's sustainable, instead of trying to race and do like, okay, I'm done with this diet, I'm done with this, like what can I move on to this, like constantly worried about it. It's working to make a plan for you, because like a plan for you might be different than your partner's plan. Like that will help balance your body and help you feel the best in your body. It will help address your sleep. It will help address your blood sugar. It will help address your digestion. It will just make you feel the best you can in your body. And I think a lot of people need that support now.
Yes, I agree. And especially because we're going to be coming up on the first of the year very soon. And that is when diet culture is
Yep. I know. And it's
at
like
its strongest.
it's like how many processed things can you buy to support your health? And really it's kind of backwards, because it's not really supporting your health. So I really believe in like working with you to build that foundation. Like if you don't want to do something, like I'm not going to tell you you need to do something. So it's something that you feel comfortable with, to support yourself, so that like you can work with me for a few months, and then you can take that and go and live your life in a balanced way, and that's sustainable for you, that you don't need to constantly be feeling like this is something that you're working on, that you're checking in on, that you need to make sure you're doing correctly. It's something that's just going to become ingrained in your daily routine.
I love that.
And again, like I work with balance, like there's a time and a place, like you live once. Like I'm not going to tell you don't eat cookies, don't eat ice cream. And I think people need to understand that too, that like nutritional therapy practitioners, like in a lot of the girls I work with, it's finding that balance. Like things aren't good and bad. Things are more supportive of your foundations, and things are less supportive of your foundations. Things are going to make you feel better than other things do. And it's funny when you start to pay attention to those cues like you did, and you eat something that doesn't agree with you, you notice it more than when you eat something and you're like, oh, maybe I won't eat that as much because I don't feel as great when I eat it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is terrible for me. It's either going to make me gain weight, or it's full of processed ingredients. Like eat the cookie and notice how you feel after it. And then maybe you won't eat it as much, or you're like, I feel fine. And okay, nothing bad happened to me. I'm fine. I can eat it again.
So that's so funny. We just experienced this yesterday. So Scott and I have both kind of been going through this journey together. And so yesterday he woke up and he was like, I really want to go out for breakfast today.
You're like, great.
I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it. But so we were about halfway to the breakfast spot that we usually go to, and he looked at me and he said, you know what? Let's go to the market. And he was like, I'll make, because he really wanted pancakes. He was like, I'll make pancakes.
My favorite breakfast.
And he was like, because we're not going to feel good if we eat out. He was like, they're going to make it with canola oil. It's not even going to be real maple syrup. He was like, I want like pancakes and real maple syrup. And I was like, I am so proud of you. I was like, yes,
it's
like
interesting. Like, and it's funny when you're like, oh, I want this, but it's like, I know this version of it's not going to be that good. And it's not going to make me feel good, but you know that you can make it. And again, it wasn't difficult to make those pancakes, was it?
no. And I mean, especially
it's okay.
When he cooks, it's like even easier, he's like a super trained chef that has worked at like the best restaurants in the world. So like what would take the normal person like an hour to make, it takes him like 10 to 20 minutes. So
yeah. And you didn't need all these fancy ingredients and 5 million different ingredients to do it. Like you can make the same type of food and chances are it will be just as good.
Yep. It was better even because we didn't leave feeling like that gross feeling that you truly get from eating seed oils and canola oil. Like you don't realize how bad it is and how much it affects your health until you cut it out. And then, I mean, it's in everything. So we know that we're constantly being microdosed with it. And especially like every once in a while, we love to go out to eat where food.
So do we, and that's,
and you're getting it when you go to a restaurant, and that sucks.
And it is what it is. But like you have the foundation that it's not going to bother you that much. And that's really what, sorry,
no, it's okay.
I'm like, it's really building that foundation and knowing like you're fine. Like you have that, you can go out and enjoy the food at a restaurant, like do it. Like we live once and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. And to enjoy, like to live a healthy lifestyle, but also to allow yourself room to enjoy. And that's really what we're
at that restaurant. Sorry to cut you off. While you're at that restaurant, like, and again, you don't have to think about this all the time, but something we say is like making sure that meal is balanced somewhat. So like if you're having the pancakes, have a little bit of protein with it, or have a little bit, there's depending how you make it, like there might be fat in it, but like making sure you have the protein, fat, and carbs. So like if you're having the pancakes, like have something to help balance that blood sugar instead of just having it full of carbs. Like put something with it, put some butter on it or some ghee on it for the fat, and like just have that balance. And it doesn't have to be perfect every time. Like it's funny when you go into looking into balancing the protein, fat, and carbs, how difficult it can be. And like that's what I can help you find that balance with. And just like you can have and enjoy those pancakes and not feel bad about them, and like have the protein with it, and you'll survive.
I really love that. So lastly, this is the question that I ask pretty much everyone. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, that's tough. And I do know you asked that. I should have been prepared for that. Darn. I really like, and maybe she'll listen to this. You know her, Lori Mancini used to tell me all the time, progress, not perfection. So and again, like with this topic, I think it's very important to say that because it's slow progress, and like, and it's not perfection. Like you need to make that progress perfection doesn't exist. I tell my students, we'd all be little robots walking around if we were all perfect. Like make that progress, and that's all that really matters.
I love that. And I think that's the perfect note to end on. Lastly, plug yourself. This is your time to shine. So if somebody wants to work with you, if they want to just see your social media, where can they find you?
My website is soshealthandwellness.com, and my Instagram is kdt.ntp. And those are the two places you can reach me. My email is kdt.ntp@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. this episode like has totally lit me up. Like I keep saying this all the time. They're all my favorites, but this is such a good episode. And I think it's so important. And it's really something that people need to hear because we are on the precipice of huge change to society. And I really think we're stepping towards a better world. And that starts with the individual person, and diet is something that is in our control. It's something that we can make a small change with just by simply being more aware. So thank you for being on.
And not comparing your diet to somebody else's. Like what works for them might not work for you.
Yes, that's so important. Like everybody's body is different. Everybody's body needs different fuel, and like let's respect each other's choices.
Well, this was fun. Thank you.
This was so fun. Thank you for coming on. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll see you next week.